We live in an age of giants. We have towering cranes, GPS satellite, and laser guide drill. We pride ourselves on being the most advanced versions of humanity to ever work the earth. But if you look closely at the scar of our past, you will find a series of stone enigmas that shouldn't exist. There are monuments scattered across our planet that mock our modern machines and defy our textbook. How did ancient culture, supposedly limited to copper chisel and helm rock, live stone heavier than modern jet? How did they align their temple to the star with a precision that equal our best satellite? From the desolate plains of Peru to the rugged mountains of India, we are surrounded by impossible architecture. These are the structures that suggest our ancestors knew something we have forgotten, or that the story we were taught in is complete. In this video, we aren't just looking at old rock, we are challenging the boundary of what we think is possible. We are counting down 10 ancient structures that leave modern scientists scratching their head in disbelief. This is a journey into the brilliance of the ancients. This is the mystery of the stone. Let's begin. On one of the most isolated spots on Earth, a tiny volcanic speck in the middle of the Pacific Oceans, stand nearly 900 silent sentinels. These are the Moai of Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, carved from compressed volcanic ash. The massive head and torso range from 10 to 80 tons in weight. They stand with their back to the sea, gazing over the land with hollow eyes and mysterious expressions. But the real mystery isn't why they were carved, it's how they got to where they are. For decades, the Moai has been a scientific puzzle. Most of these statues were carved in a single quarry called Ranararaku. However, they are found scattered all across the island, miles away from the source. To a modern engineer, moving an 80-ton solid stone over rugged volcanic terrain would require heavy dirty trailer, massive crane, and a pay rod. The Napa Brewery pupil has none of these. They has no wheel, no latch drop anymore, and very little timber for a roller. For a long time, the leading theory was that the islander used log roller, cutting down the island one lush forest to create a wooden conveyor belt. But this theory has a hold. Even with roller, the sheer manpower required to pull the top-heavy giant up and downhill would have been impossible for a small island population to sustain. However, the local oral traditions of the Rapa Nui people has always offered a different answer. When asked how the statues were moved, the elder didn't talk about roller or rough. They simply said the statue worked. For a long time, scientists dismissed this as folklore, but in recent years, experimental archaeologists decided to take the legend literally. They discovered that the Moai were carved with a very specific, rod base and a center of gravity that leans slightly forward. By using three teams of people with heavy rope, one pulling from behind and two rocking the statue from side to side, they found they could make a replica Moai work in a rhythmic, waddling motions. It will break through, but it only opens more questions. Even if they could work, how did they navigate the steep slope and narrow paths without the star two toppling over the starter ring? And then there is the puka, the massive red stone head that sits on top of some of the tallest moai. Some of the heads weighed 12 tons on their own. Lifting a 12 tons block to the top of the 30-foot tall statues is a feat that would challenge a modern construction crew. Researchers get they might have used long ram and a paralleling technique, but the precision required to balance the cylinder on the narrow head of the moai remains staggering. The moai are the testament to the power of human ingenuity, but they are also a warning. Their obsessions with building the giants eventually led to the total deforestation of the island, a collapse of their ecosystem, and a tragic civil war. The statues work to their destinations, but in doing so, they may help work their creator towards extinction. Today, they remain one of the world's most enduring mysteries. Silent giants that remind us that the lie between a brilliant achievement and a self-destructive obsession is our stings at the edge of the storm chisel. If you travel to the remote island of Pompeii in the federated state of Micronesia, you will find a place that seems to belong more to a fantasy novel than to our world. It is called Nanmerdo, and it is the only Asian city ever built on top of a coral reef, often referred to as Venice of the Pacific. Nanmerdo is a labyrinth of 92 artificial islands, connected by a network of tidal canals and protected from crushing waves of the Pacific by massive seawall. But unlike Venice, which is built on wooden pile and brick, Nanmerdo is constructed entirely from hundreds of millions of tons of volcanic rock. The scale of Nanmerdo is staggering. The city covers nearly 200 acres and is built from naturally occurring basalt rock, hexagonal and octagonal columns of volcanic stone that formed millions of years ago. Some of these stone blocks are 5 meters long and weigh as much as 50 tons. In total, it is estimated that over 250 million tons of this stone were used to build the city. To put that into perspective, the total weight of the stone in Nanmerdo River that of the Great Pyramids of Giza. Yet, this titanic feat was achieved by a civilization that lived on a tiny island with no metal tool, no pulley, and no wheel. The construction technique is unique. The stones were carved. They were stuck like Lincoln log to create massive walls, some of which stand 15 meters high and are several meters thick. The gaps were filled with coral rubber to create stable platform for house and temple. How the ancient Pompeians moved the stone in the central mystery that leave modern science baffled. The quarry where the basalt columns were formed is located on the opposite side of the island. To get them to Nanmerdo, the builder had to transport tens of thousands of the Merton log across the island's rough interior or around its coastline through treacherous reef. Local reasons offer a magical explanation. The oral history of the island tells of two twin sorrows, Olosulphur and Olosifer, who arrived from a distant land. According to the story, they didn't use roughs or slaves to move the stones. Instead, they used their magical power to make the massive puzzle log fly through the air, landing perfectly in place. While scientists look for logical explanations, such as using giant bamboo rafts to float the storm during high tide, no one has been able to successfully replicate the feat with the technology available to the ancients. Even with a raft, the weight of a 50 tons brazil column would likely sink any primitive vessel, especially when navigating the shallow, coral chalk lagoons surrounding the city. Nanmurda was the ceremonial and political seat of the Saudalar dynasty, a powerful and secretive line of ruler who governed the island for centuries. The city was designed as a play of segregations. The elite lived on an artificial island, separated from the commoner by the water. It was a city of ritual and taboos, with specific islands dedicated to preparing food, building canals, and burying the dead. The most impressive structure is Nandoast, a royal mausoleum which were thus look like a prehistoric fortress. The city was eventually abandoned in the 17th century after the collapse of the Saudalar dynasty, and the jungle began to reclaim the stone log. Today, the ruins are a haunting, watery maze where the tide still races and falls through the ancient canal. Model defy modern science because it represents a logistical impossibility. A megalithic city built in the most difficult environment imaginable, the open oceans. It stands as a silent monument to a people who saw the crushing weight of the earth and the vastness of the seas not as obstacles, but as the foundations for their own impossible paradise. Leaving the remote island of the Pacific, we traveled deep into the heart of the Andes Mountains in Peru, to the city of Cusco, the navel of the Inca world. Perched on a steep hill overlooking the city lay a sight that had left explorer and engineer speechless for centuries. Sacsayhuaman. If you think you understand ancient construction, the world will force you to reconsider everything. This isn't just a fortress, it is a massive, three-dimensional geometric puzzle that modern science still hasn't fully solved. The first thing that hit you as Sacsayhuaman isn't the design, but the sheer, crushing scale. The walls are built from massive limestone blocks, the largest of which stand over 8 meters tall and weigh an estimated 120 to 200 tons. But put that in perspective. That is the weight of a fully loaded Boeing 747. The Inca moved the Titans from quarry located at least 20 kilometers away, navigating them through some of the most treacherous mountain terrains on the planet. And they did it without the wheel, without iron tools, and without the help of large draught animals like horses or oxen. But The real mystery lies in the feet. The Inca used a technique known as positional masonry, and as success women, they took it to an impossible level. Each stone is unique, featuring dozens and irregular angle and surface that lock into the surrounding stones like pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle. There is no mortar, no cement, and no glue holding the world together. Gravity and precision are the only anchors. The fit is so perfect that for centuries, people have tried and failed to slide a single blade of grass or a thin piece of paper between the joints. When the Spanish conquistadors first arrived, they were so terrified by the perfections of the work that they believed they were the work of demons or giants. They couldn't conceive of primitive humans achieving such a feat. Why go through the agonizing effort of carving 200-ton stones into complex, irregular shapes instead of simple squares? The answer is the masterclass in ancient engineering, seismic survival. Peru is one of the most earthquake-prone regions on Earth. When a massive quake hit, a wall of rectangular brick will crack and collapse. But, unsucks a woman, the stones are designed to dance. During a tremor, the interlocking block vibrate and shift slightly in place, absorbing the energy. When the ground stopped moving, the weight of the stone settled them back into their origins. Perfect precision. While modern buildings in Cusco have crumbled repeatedly over the last 500 years, the walls of the Inca haven't moved an inch. Modern researchers have struggled to replicate this. How did they carve these stones with such precision using only stone hammer and bronze chisel? Some theorists have suggested the Inca possessed a lost technology to soften the stone using plant extract, while others look for advanced sonic or thermal tools. But in the absence of a smoking gun explanation, we are left with the reality of the world themselves. Success women is more than just a word. It is a silent challenge to our modern ego. It reminds us that Asians do not mean ignorant. The people who built this understood the physics of the earth and the geometry of stone in a way that we are still trying to decode. It stands today as a testament to our civilizations that didn't build on the earth, just become master of the very mountain itself. In 1963, in the Cappadocia regions of central Turkey, a man decided to renovate his home. While knocking down a wall in his basement, he found more than just extra space. He stumbled upon a dark opening that led to a staircase. As he followed that staircase down, he realized he wasn't just in a cave. He had accidentally discovered a gateway to a lost world. This was Derinkuju, a massive subterranean metropolis that had remained hidden from human eyes for centuries. Derinkuju is not merely a collection of caves. It is a sprawling, 18-story urban masterpiece carved directly into the soft volcanic top rock of the Anatolian Plateau. The city was designed to house up to 20,000 people along with their livestock and food supplies. It descends nearly 85 meters into the air, equivalent to the modern skyscraper buried upside down. But the real challenge to modern science isn't just the size of the city, it's the staggering architectural precision required to keep it from collapsing. Imagine the level of engineering knowledge needed to excavate thousands of tons of rock without a single structural failure. The builder has to account for the weight of the mountains above them. They left massive stone pillars in exactly the right places to support the ceiling, ensuring that as they dug deeper, the pressure didn't crush the room below. One wrong move, one unstable pillar, and the entire city would have become a mass grave. Yet, thousands of years later, there's no evidence of a single cave in. As you descend into Derinkudu, you realize this wasn't a temporary shelter. It was a fully functioning society. There are stables for horses on the upper level, followed by living squatter, winery with massive vat, oil presses, and even a sprawling religious school with a vaulted ceiling. There are wells that descend all the way to the water table, bypassable at higher level to prevent enemies from poisoning the water supply. But the most impressive feat of engineering is the ventilation system. More than 50,000 shafts were carved through the rock, allowing fresh air to circulate perfectly even in the deepest chamber. Even today, at the very bottom of the city, the air remains cool and breathable, a feat that modern HVAC engineers find difficult to achieve without mechanical assistance. The city was also a fortress of silence and security. Each level could be sealed off from the next by massive 500-kilogram rolling stone doors. The circular discs were designed with a small hole in the center, allowing defenders to spear intruder while remaining safely behind the stone. Crucially, the door could only be opened and closed from the inside. It was a city built on fear, a sanctuary designed for people who need to disappear at the moment noticed to escape invading armies or religious persecution. The mystery that haunts historians is who built this. Some say it was the Phrygians in the 8th century BC. Others suggest it goes back to the Hittite nearly 3,500 years ago. But the sheer scale of the project suggests a civilization with a deep understanding of geology and subterranean physics that we are only beginning to appreciate. Darren culture is a testament to the length humanity will go to survive. It challenges our modern perceptions of progress by showing that thousands of years ago, people were capable to create climate-controlled, self-sustaining urban environment under the most extreme conditions. It remained a silent, dark masterpiece, a reminder that some of the greatest achievements of the human spirit are hidden deep beneath of the dead, waiting in the shadow for someone to knock down the right wall. If you think the stones at Sacsayhuaman or the Great Pyramids are heavy, prepare to have your sense of scale completely settled. For our sixth enjoy, we traveled to the Bequa Valley in Lebanon, to the ancient city of Baalbek. This site, known to Romans as Heliopolis or City of the Suns, contains some of the best preserved Romance ruins in the world. But beneath the elegant Corinthian column of the Temple of Jupiter lies a foundation that predates the Romans, a foundation built with stone so colossally large that they defy almost every conventional explanation of ancient engineering. The focus of our mystery is the Trilithon. This is a group of three massive limestone blocks incorporated into the retaining wall of the temple platform. Each of these stones is approximately 19 meters long, 4 meters high, and nearly 4 meters thick. To put that in perspective, a single stone in the Trilithon weighed an estimated 800 tons. That is the equivalent of moving 5 or 6 blue whales, the largest animal to ever exist, in a single, solid piece. But the mystery deepens when you visit the nearby quarry, just a few hundred meters away. There, still partially attached to the bedrock, lies a stone even larger, the stone of the pregnant woman. For centuries, it was thought to be the largest stone ever quarried by man, weighing roughly 1,000 tons. But recent excavations in 2014 uncovered an even bigger behemoth beneath it, estimated at a staggering 1,650 tons. These are not just stones, they are mountains carved into rectangle. Modern science struggles with one simple question: how? Traditional archaeology credits the Romans with moving the Trilithon stone. The Romans were undoubtedly master engineers. They had craned, treadway, and capstan. However, even the most advanced Roman cranes were designed to lift weight in the 5 to 20-ton range. Moving an 800-ton block at a different level of physics entirely. To lift such a weight, you would need hundreds of cranes working in perfect, flawless synchronization, something that is mechanically almost impossible with wooden machinery. Furthermore, the Trilithon stones are not just sitting on the ground. They are raised 7 meters 23 feet into the air and fitted together with such precision that you can even slide a business card between them. Even today, with our most powerful hydraulic cranes, moving a 1,000 tons block is a major logistical operation that required months of planning, specialized growth, and computer stabilized equipment. The idea that people 2,000 years ago or more moved the block using only wooden roller and hand roughs, frankly, had to swallow for many modern engineers. This had led to the megalithic precursor theory. Many researchers get that the massive stone platform at Baalbek was already there long before the Romans arrived. They believe the Romans simply found these impossible foundations and built their own temple on top of it. If this is true, it suggests an even older, lost civilizations, one that possessed a method of moving, titanic weight that had been completely erased from the historical record, was is the mastery of occultics, a lost understanding of level or counterweight, or perhaps a technology so simple and elegant that we, in our modern complexity, have completely overlooked it. Buyback is the place where the grandeur of Rome meets the mystery of the giant. It challenges Earth to rethink the timeline of human capability. When you stand in the shadow of the Trilateral, you realize that our ancestors weren't just working hard. They were achieving things that we, with all our electricity and steel, would still find daunting. It remained a silent, heavy witness to a time when humans or someone moved the very foundations of the earth. If you were to walk across the San Jose Plateau in southeast Peru today, you would find yourself in one of the most inhospitable places on earth. It is a world apart earth, with its brown stones, and a silence so profound it felt heavy. For centuries, travelers crossed these deserts on foot or by mule, seeing nothing more than a vast, featureless wasteland. But in the 1920s, when the first commercial plane began to fly over the region, pilots locked down and saw something that shattered their understanding of history. The desert floor wasn't empty. It was a giant canvas covered in mud, a perfectly straight line, and gargantuan figures of animals and insects. There are the Nazca line, and they represent one of the greatest point of view mystery in the world. The scale of the drawing is almost impossible to grasp from the ground. There are over 800 string lines, 300 geometric figures, and 70 biomorph, stunningly accurate depictions of living things. There is a spider 150 feet long with reproductive organs at the ends of its leg, a detail only visible under a microscope. There is a monkey with a tail that spirals into a perfect geometric circle. There is a hummingbird with a wingspan the size of the football field. And most strangely of all, there is a humanoid figure known as the astronaut, a giant with purpose eyes carved into a hillside, waving internally at the sky. The first question modern science asks is how. The Nazca people who tried here between 200 BCE and 600 CE created this line with a method that is brilliantly simple yet terrifyingly precise. The desert is covered in a layer of dark, iron oxide quartz pebble. By simply moving the pebble to the side, the lighter, yellowish sand underneath it revealed. Because the planet is one of the driest places on Earth, receiving only about 20 minutes of rain per year, and because there is almost no wind at ground level, these scratches in the earth have remained crisp and clear for 2 millennia. But simplicity ends when symmetry begins. How did an ancient culture, lacking any form of aerial perspective, draw a 300-foot long bird with perfect proportions? If you are standing on the ground, You can only see a single furrow in the sand. You have no way of knowing if the line you are walking in part of a wing or a beak. Archaeologists believe they used a sophisticated system of great scaling, creating a small scale mountain and then using stick and long rope to project it onto the desert floor. It was a masterpiece of surveying and geometry executed without a single error. One wrong turn, the, and the entire image would be a chaotic mess. This brings us to the why, which is the heart of the mystery. Why would a civilization spend decades, perhaps centuries, create art that they themselves could never truly see? The Nazca people did not have airplanes or hot air balloons for a long time. Researchers like Maria Reich, known as the Lady of the Lights, argued that the platter was a giant astronomical calendar. She believed the lights pointed to the exact spot on the horizon where the sun and stars would rise during the crucial planting and harvesting season. However, more recent theories suggest a more desperate motive: water. In the Sahara's deserts, water was more valuable than gold. Many of the geometric trapezoid and strain lines seem to follow the path of underground aquifer or point toward the distant mountains where the rain began. The geoglyph wasn't just art, they were likely ritual pathway. Imagine thousands of people working in a single file along the lines of the giant spider or the monkey, chanting and praying to the god of the sky to release the rain. The drawing wasn't meant for human eyes. They were messages for the god who lived in the heavy, the only one who could see the full picture. The Nazca lies challenge our modern assumption that we are the only one who can think big. They remind us of a culture that's willing to work for a perspective that would never achieve in their lifetime. They drew for a heavens, leaving behind a silent gallery that's only become visible to humanity once we finally learned to fly. It is a haunting thought. We are spent 2,000 years working right over the top of the masterpiece, completely blind to the giant beneath our feet. If you want to make an architect or a stonemason lose sleep, take them to the high altitude plateau of the Bolivian Andes. There, near the shores of Lake Titicaca lies Puma Punkur. At first glance, it looked like a giant toy box was smashed and scattered across the dirt. But as you look closer, you realize you aren't looking at ruin. In the traditional sense, you are looking at the prehistoric constructions site that feature prescient engineering so advanced it makes the Great Pyramid look like a child craft project. Pumapunkur is part of the larger Tiwanaku complex, but it sits in a category of its own. The site is famous for its H-block, massive modular stone carved into the shape of the letter H. These blocks are identical. They feature complex groove, internal right angle, and risquet notches that suggest they were designed to lock together like megalithic versions of Lego brick. This implied that the builder wasn't just carving stone, they were using a system of standardized mass production thousands of years before the Industrial Revolutions. The material Used here is primarily red sandstone and andesite. Andesite is a volcanic rock that's incredible hard, ranking just below diamonds on the hardness scale. To cut it today, we would use diamond stripped saw or higher power laser. Yet at Pumapunkur, you find lines so straight they look like they were drawn with a ruler and internal angles so sharp you couldn't almost cut your finger on them. Modern engineers have examined the block with caliber and found that the measurements are consistent down to a millimeter. In some stones, there are tiny, perfectly circular through holes of uniform depth, spaced exactly apart. To achieve with the tool, archaeologists say the Tiwanaku people had, stone hammer and copper chisel, is quite frankly impossible. Copper is a soft metal. Trying to cut andesite with copper is like trying to cut a stick with a toothpick. It simply doesn't work. The level of precision at Puma Punku suggests a mastery of mathematics and geology that we are only beginning to decode. It is the hardest puzzle in ancient history. Then there is the matter of the weight. Puma Punku features stone slabs that weigh up to 131 tons. They weren't quarried on site. The sandstone came from a quarry 10 miles away, and the heavier andesite was transported from a site 60 miles across Lake Titicaca. How do you move a 130-ton block across a mountain pass at an altitude of 12,500 feet, 3,800 meters? At this height, the air is thin. The human physical endurance is severely limited. There are no trees on this plateau to provide wood for roller, and the ground is often muddy or uneven. Even with modern hydraulic trawler, moving a weight this size in this environment would be a multi-million-dollar logistical nightmare. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Pumapunku is in current state. The entire complex looks like it was hit by massive, violent explosions. Blocks weighing dozens of tons are flipped over, shattered, and tossed hundreds of feet from their origins position. Some researchers suggest a massive earthquake or the tsunami from Lake Titicaca caused a destruction. But what is even more strange is that the city appeared unfinished. It's as if the builder were in the middle of the high-tech assembly project, using their modular block to build something massive, and then they simply stopped. They walked away. All were without, leaving behind a blueprint in stone that we still can reach. Pumapunkur stand at a silent, stern challenge to an idea that human progress is a straight line from primitive to advanced. It's that a sculpture one exists that could program stone like we program computer. It remains a sculpture masterpiece, a reminder that some of our greatest ancient wonders weren't built with muscle and sweat, but with a technology that has been completely lost to time. If you want to witness the ultimate victory of human patience over cold, hard storm, you must travel to the Ellora Cave in Maharashtra, India. There, hidden among 34 different monasteries and temples, live K-16s, but cave is a deceptive word. What you're what you are actually looking at is the Kailasar Temple, a massive, multi-story cathedral dedicated to Lord Shiva. It is not just the largest monolithic structure in the world. It is an architectural impossibility that flips the very definitions of constructions on its head. When we build a skyscraper or a cathedral today, we start from the ground and add material, brick, steel, and glass, piece by piece until the structure is complete. But the builder of Kailaser did the exact opposite. They practiced subtractive architecture. They chose a single, massive puzzle cliff site and decided to find the temple inside it. They didn't bring in a single stone from outside. Instead, they cut away the mountain until only the temple remained. The most staggering fact about Kailasar is that its was carved from the top down. Imagine standing on the roof of a house you haven't built yet and trying to carve the master bedroom beneath your feet. The architect began at the summit of the mountain and worked their way down to the highest floor. This method is terrifyingly unforgiving. In traditional construction, if a worker breaks a pillar or miscalculates a measurement, you can replace the brick or adjust the beam. As Kailaser, there were no second chance. Every pillar, every onyx statue of an elephant, every bridge, and every internal room was part of the origin mountain. One wrong streak of a chisel, one crack in the basalt, and centuries of work would have been ruined. There was no underbutton, yet the precision is flawless. The temple is perfectly symmetrical, featuring complex drainage system and intricate bridge that connect different levels of the structure. The mystery of the missing mountain. Modern geologists and historians have calculated that to create this masterpiece, the builder has to remove between 200,000 and 400,000 tons of solid Persian rock. This is the weight comparable to several aircraft carriers. According to the mainstream history, the temple was commissioned by King Khizr, one of the Rashtrakuta dynasty in the 8th century, and was completed in roughly 18 to 20 years. If you do the math, that timeline is impossible. It would mean the workers were removing over 20 tons of rock every single day, working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, for 2 decades straight, and they weren't just digging. They were dedicatedly carving intricate sculpture of God, battle, and life-size elephant. Even more baffling, the debris is gone. To this day, archaeologists have never found the hundreds of thousands of tons of excavated rock. Persil is a heavy, durable stone. It doesn't just wash away. It wasn't used to build all the structure nearby, and it hasn't been found in any local valley. It is as if the mountains simply evaporated. The level of detail at Kalasi is enough to make a modern 3D modeling program struggle. The temple is covered in thousands of square feet of reef-like carving, The most famous is the scenes of the demon king Ravana shaking Mount Kailasil. The depth, the shadow, and the anatomical correctness of the finger are so advanced that they seem to breathe life into the stone. The temple was designed to be a physical representation of Mount Kailasar, the celestial home of Lord Shiva. To the people of the 8th century, this wasn't just a project, it was an art of extreme devotion. But to a modern engineer, it is a logistical lost story. How did they manage the lighting diff inside the temple as they carved into the dark heart of the mountain? They didn't How didn't they ensure the structural integrity of a building that was being hollowed out from within? Kailasa Temple remained a silent, puzzle titan that mocked our modern tool. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest way to create something eternal isn't to build it up, but to have the vision to see what is already hidden inside the earth. It is a masterpiece or impossible engineering that suggests the ancients possessed a level of focus and geometric mastery, what that we are only beginning to understand. On a windswept plateau in Wiltshire, England, stand perhaps the most recognizable collections of rock in human history. To a casual observer, Stonehenge might look like a messy pile of grey powder, but to an engineer, as astronomer, or a historian, it is a 5,000 years old middle finger to the idea that our ancestors were primitive. Stonehenge is not just a circle of stone, it is a massive, metal-tons astronomical computer built by a people who has no will, no written language, and no method to beyond stone and bone. The first mystery of Stonehenge is the logistic of the impossible. The monument is made of two main types of stone, the massive sasens and the smaller mysterious blue stone. The sasens, which form the outer circle, and the iconic trilithon, weighed an average of 25 tons each, which with the largest tipping the scale at 30 tons. They were hauled from the marble Dow, about 20 miles away, while miles south short. Imagine dragging a weight equivalent to 4 African elephants across muddy, uneven terrain using nothing but wooden sled and raw human muscle. But the sashes are the easy part. The inner circle is made of blue stone, which weigh up to 4 stone each. Geologists have tracked the stone to their source, the, the Priestley Hill in Wave, a staggering 150 miles 240 kilometers, all the way from the Salisbury Plain. How does a Neolithic culture move 84-ton stone across mountains, forests, and river? The leading theory is a combination of plain hauling and sea transport using primitive raft. However, experimental archaeologists who tried to replicate this feat using ancient technology almost draw their raft and felt that the land journey was a grueling, slow-motion nightmare. It would have required a level of societal organizations and long-term planning that rival the constructions of a modern highway system. Why go through that much agony for a specific type of rock? Some believe the blue stone were through to have healing properties, making the 150 milk journey to massive, multi-generational pilgrimage of stone. If the transport was a miracle of bronze, the layer the layout is a miracle of brain. Stonehenge is perfectly aligned with the solar cycle. On the summer solstice, the sun rises exactly behind the hill stone and shines its first ray directly into the heart of the circle. On the winter solstice, it's the exact opposite, making the moment when the day begins to lengthen again. This wasn't just a lucky guess. To achieve this level of accuracy, the builder has to understand the wobble of the earth and the changing tilt of the sun over decades. They weren't just building a temple, they were building a gigantic stone-based clock. They understood the geometry of the circle and the mathematics of the horizon long before the Greek or Roman discovered them. Perhaps the most frustrating part for modern scientists is that the people who built Stonehenge left zero written record. We don't know their names, their language, or their songs. We only have their trust, broken flint, animal bones, and the massive silent stone. There are no depictions of the constructions, no blueprint etched into the rock. We see the final product, but we have lost the manure. Stonehenge defied modern science because it provides us you don't need high tech to achieve high precision. It suggests that the humans of 3000 BCE possessed a level of focus and a communal will that we, in our distracted modern age, find almost impossible to replicate. Stone Age stands as a silent sentinel on the Salisbury Plain, reminding us that while our technology changes, our obsessions with the star and our desire to leave a permanent mark on the earth remain identical. It is a masterpiece of prehistoric engineering that tells us we were here, we knew the star, and we moved mountains to prove it. We have reached the pinnacle of ancient mystery. It is the only member of the seven wonders of the ancient world still standing, and it is, quite simply, the most scrutinized, measured, and debated structure on the face of the earth. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not just a pile of rock, it is a 6 million-ton mathematical and engineering miracle that seems to belong more to realm of science fiction than to the Bronze Age. To look at the Great Pyramid today is to see a scarred, tan-colored skeleton, but when it was completed around 2560 BCE, it would have been blinding. It was covered in 144,000 highly polished Tura limestone casing stone that reflected the sun like a giant mirror, making the pyramid visible for hundreds of miles. The scale of the Great Pyramids is where modern science begins to struggle. It is composed of approximately 2.3 million stone blocks. According to mainstream Egyptology, the pyramids were built in roughly 20 years. If you do the math, to finish this project in 2 decades, the worker would have had to collie, transport, car, and perfectly place one massive stone block every 2 to 3 minutes, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Even with our most advanced 21st century logistic, heavy machinery, and computer-aided design, a project of this speed and precision would be nearly impossible to execute. And the Egyptians did it with copper too, wooden sled, and hand rope. But the Great Pyramid isn't just big, it is hauntingly accurate. Its four sides are aligned to true north with a margin of error of only 3/16 of a degree. This is a level of precision that modern architects struggle to achieve with GPS and laser leveling tool. Even more baffling is the math encoded in its dimensions. If you take the perimeter of the pyramid and divide it by twice its height, you get a value of p. If you look at the proportions of the king chamber, you find the golden ratio. These are mathematical constants that were supposed to be discovered for another 1,000 years. Was it coincidence? Or did the builder have a deep, fundamental understanding of the geometry of the universe that we are only now relearning? The most difficult engineering fit within the pyramid is the king chamber. Hidden deep inside the structure, this room is roofed by 9 massive granite beams, each weighing between 15 and 70 tons. The granite blocks were not found at Giza. They were quarried in Aswan, nearly 500 miles, 800 kilometers to the south. How did they transport 70 tons slab across the desert and up the Nile? And once they arrived at Giza, how did they lift the massive weight 150 feet into the air to place them perfectly above the chamber? Even our most powerful modern crane would find the task daunting. For centuries, we were told the Great Pyramid was the tomb of the pharaoh Khufu. But when the first explorer broke into the king's chamber, they found nothing. No mummy, no gold, no funerary text, just an empty, lid-led granite coffer that was too large to fit through the door, meaning it must have been placed there during construction. Then there are the air shafts, the narrow tunnel lit from the internal chamber to the exterior of the pyramid. They aren't for air. They are perfectly aligned with specific star, Orion belt, and Sirius. This suggests the pyramid wasn't just a tomb. It was a cosmic machine, an observation, and perhaps something even more complex that we still don't have the word to describe. The Great Pyramid defies modern science because it sits at the intersections of impossible and real. It is a 4,500 years old reminder that our ancestors were not primitive versions of Earth. They were masters of a different kind of science, one that relied on a perfect harmony between mathematics, astronomy, and Earth moving on a scale that we have yet to equal. It remains the ultimate number one, a silent storm titan then that's watched the century past, waiting for us to finally become smart enough to understand its secret. From the working genius of Easter Island to the mathematical perfections of the Great Pyramid, Our world is filled with echoes of the past we can quite explain. These structures challenge us to rethink everything we know about human history. They remind us that the story to humanity isn't a straight line of progress, but a journey filled with forgotten peaks of brilliance. Which of the impossible structure fascinates you the most? Is it the persistence of Pumapunku or the scale of Giza? Let us know in the comment below. If you enjoyed the journey into the mystery of the ancient, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dive into the story that time forgot. Until next time, keep looking at the star and the stars.